Is this okay? If I'm too loud, sorry, I got it from my dad. So I decided to come up with this talk when I did my Kickstarter earlier last year around March. We decided to use it as an experimental platform for both market validation, kind of pre-marketing, and I just kind of wanted to learn how the whole process went because I was kind of fascinated with everybody else who was using Kickstarter and obviously the success stories that came out of it. So I kind of dove into it quite deeply. I spent a lot of time researching, and I guess that a lot of people who were asking me how I did my Kickstarter, I couldn't give them a simple answer because it was a lot of different things. You kind of have to do a million different things. They're not hard, but you kind of have to do all of them in order to probably make it succeed, just because it's not a simple process. So I'm just gonna go right into it. I've been around the startup thing for probably about 8 years now. I started an app company back in around 2008. It was about half a year after the App Store opened, and me and my brother decided to start making apps. We decided to jump into games a few years after that, and that's when Massive Damage started. All my stuff is online, you can find me anywhere, so I'll just jump right to here. This is the game that I did my Kickstarter for. We were a mobile game development company. Well, I didn't say were, I guess we still are, but that was our majority of what we were doing, and I wanted to do something a little different, and I also wanted to do an experiment by creating a PC and Mac game that did well enough so that when we launched it on mobile, we wouldn't have to spend the insane amounts of money that a lot of mobile companies have to acquire users. So I'll let you know how that experiment goes next year when we launch the mobile version of this game. This is how we did on our Kickstarter. Basically, if you look at this chart, there's two main findings here. The percentage that was coming in from Kickstarter itself, which meant Kickstarter discovery, versus the percentage that came in via external referrers. So that's pretty important. Obviously, Kickstarter discovery was 50%. Well, I guess it's all 50%, but there was a lot of featuring of our game on because it got an editor's choice, and we had a good relationship with the games editor at Kickstarter. So I kept finding our campaign being featured either on the games page, either on the popularity page. I would say probably about 8 times during the month of our campaign we got featured. So that was very helpful, but as you can see, that only brought in about 95K. The other half came in through external referral, and I'll explain how some of that happened throughout the process. And we're actually pretty lucky too. They dropped pledges. Some people were citing they were getting up to about 5 to 10% in dropped pledges, and ours only came up to like $2,000 out of 187,000 raised. So that was pretty amazing. I'm pretty happy. I was really worried about what that percentage might turn out to be at the end of the campaign, because you don't know until they finally start charging the credit cards that whether everybody who promised that they're going to do this actually did it. So, and they don't charge credit cards until after the campaign's over. Some people think they do, but they wait. So yeah. And of course, the Kickstarter and payment fees was a hefty chunk of almost 16 grand. This is the biggest lesson I learned, and I'll get into the details of what this means, but pretty much with any campaign, day one is key, and everything you do is to, if all you had was one blob of time to work on something, it would be day one. Obviously, there's a lot more work to it, but that was the biggest thing, and I'll kind of get into the details of that. There's 5 steps that I took, I guess, towards the the management and construction of my Kickstarter. And first step is the research data collection. Second step was the analysis, obviously, both from a quantitative and qualitative perspective. Then there's the designing and planning of the actual campaign page, and there's a lot of design if you want to do it right. It's not yeah, there's a lot of bad Kickstarters out there. I don't even need to pull up an example. You just go on Kickstarter, you see pretty bad examples. The launch itself is a whole different beast, and then obviously post-launch campaign management is actually almost as important as the rest of it is. You know, you can do that well, but if your campaign's shitty, then it's still going to be shitty. But if you did very well in your design, but you don't manage the community, you could really destroy all the work that you did, or just kind of cut your potential raise by a lot, just because you're not paying attention and you're not basically treating your backers with the respect and attention that they want. So first section would be the research and data collection. Couple of big points here. Obviously, you need to look at successful and unsuccessful campaigns, and try to stick to campaigns that are fairly new. Kickstarter, when it started, was a completely different beat. People were just throwing money at their computer, and yeah, good on those guys that got there early and raised millions of dollars for random shit. But it doesn't work like that anymore. Everybody now kind of treats every campaign with a lot more, I guess, a lot more critical eye. They don't, unless you're a proven name or you have it's an IP attached to it, nobody's going to care who you are unless you build that trust. And yeah, so that's the difference between campaigns from 2 years, like less than 2 years ago, and today. And that's why you can't take lessons from those old campaigns, because yeah, if you're going to model them, they're doing it. A lot of them were doing it all wrong, but it didn't matter. They still made $1 bajillion anyways. So that's not going to help you. And then what else I did, and I'll show you, this is an example of how I broke down some of the data for this campaign called Darkest Dungeons, which is one of the more successful indie game campaigns that were on the store recently. Kind of closely matched the kind of game we were building in terms of scope, in terms of interesting artwork. The one big blob I pointed out there where it says 24.8% of total raise, that's a very important point. That's a $49 pledge tier. It's all digital rewards. There's no physical goods attached to it, and they managed to drive 25% of their backers to that particular one. And that is like ridiculously impressive. They basically managed to, I'll show you on a further slide how they managed to basically drive everybody almost away from the physical goods. There was physical goods stuff made available for people who were really into it, but the price points were much higher, and the number of people who were backing was much lower, which is okay, because you don't want to run a shitty e-commerce t-shirt shop and then have no money to actually build your game or product. So this is a picture of the best way you could design your campaign pledges. Drive everybody to the maximum price possible for purely digital delivered goods, and these guys did it. So that was the data collection. Then you start the analysis, which I kind of started in the last chart there. You look at campaigns that look like they should have succeeded, but they didn't for some reason. Usually it's things like their video. There's some really awful videos put out there. I think there's one campaign I thought, when it popped up on my list, it was like an old school game company called SSI. Nobody here probably remembers SSI, but they made these really cool strategy games way back when. And I think they were looking at Kickstarter campaigns from about 3 years ago, where they just needed a few pictures and the name of the fact that they had a nostalgic name attached to them. But their video looked like it was shot with an iPhone, and literally the first line of the video is there's a guy who looks like a deer in headlights, and the first line he says is, "I love RPGs." Not a good way to start your video, just saying. Even if you love RPGs, which is fine. Yeah, so the main thing I was looking for when I was examining these campaigns, like Darkest Dungeons again, is I was so afraid. I've heard horror stories of people who did campaigns and they burned through their entire funding money basically running a crappy e-commerce shop, just masked as a Kickstarter. and they had no money left for development. I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a few that did that. Felt really bad for them. They basically got nothing out of it other than some exposure, which is, okay, I guess. But yeah, I really pity the people who were having to basically ship T-shirts all year and still not have money to make their product. So these guys, again, that number is ridiculous. 93.4% of their funding was purely from digital goods tiers. So almost none of the money that they made has related to shipping physical goods. Even though they are shipping physical goods, it just was such a small percentage of the total amount that they raised that it was negligible. Obviously less effort for them, and yeah, more money for actually development, which is what you want. This is the amount of work that we spent on our campaign. It was me, my artist, and my game producer. And this is kind of true, but it's not contiguous. I did spend a lot of time prepping the year before, putting out stuff in kind of a indie game forum, putting up screenshots and kind of getting some feedback. I also, one important point too, is I also put a really early, crappier version of the campaign up on a site called Square Enix Collective. So Square Enix is a major game company. You probably heard of them. They made Final Fantasy. They make, they make a lot of games. They have this website. Basically, it's like a pre-Kickstarter vetting site. They just made it for to help indie developers kind of vet some of their project ideas. So I put ours up. This is like a year before Kickstarter, and it got very positive reception on their site because their members basically vote whether or not they would back it if it was a campaign. And based on that reception, they offered a small deal where they said they would let me use their, they would use their mailing list on my campaign's behalf when I decided to tell them to go ahead and send off a notice regarding our campaign. And in return for a cost recovery fee of 5% of the campaign total. And obviously if the campaign failed, I wouldn't have to pay anything. So I thought that was a pretty good deal, and I would definitely advise, if you're doing a campaign, whether it's games or software, if there is a partner that you can hook up with that has kind of like a mailing list or a like a large audience that you can make use of, and if it matches well, because that's important too, because you want that conversion rate to be pretty high. Definitely look into that, because if you don't have that mailing list yourself, you definitely need a partner to help give that bit of a boost. But they can't do all the work for you, and I'll show you in a sec what that means. So during the design and planning, basically you're taking cues from all the campaigns that you've seen before, the ones that have succeeded. There's a lot of work involved in just crafting the message, crafting the look of the campaign page itself. You definitely want to have a designer on board or somebody to help you create assets, photos, screenshots, whatever it is that you're trying to sell. Same with a video. A video is pretty much a given, and it should be reasonably shot. iPhone videos are probably okay if you have a person who knows how to edit them and knows how to shoot it properly. But usually if you have somebody that knows that, they probably have some kind of video camera, so you might as well use that. We actually lucked out. We had the cousin of my producer. Friend of my producer. He was doing videos for Tesla, but I guess he was just looking for any extra work, and we gave him a little piece of the Kickstarter raise, as payment instead of actually having to pay him for his work. So he did a really great job, and we got a really professional looking video out of it. I mean, professional doesn't mean corporate. It just has to look like you put a little thought into it and it makes you look good. So, let's see, yeah, obviously connecting to a rep at the crowdfunding portal, whether it's Indiegogo or Kickstarter, is definitely helpful. How you get that connection, that's a little trickier, through friends, through also if you go to any of the industry conferences, sometimes Indiegogo guys and the Kickstarter guys do show up. but they're pretty approachable. You can probably just email them and get a contact. As long as your campaign looks like something legitimate and not something somebody just throwing together to get a few bucks. Stretch goal design is kind of interesting. We started off before the campaign launch. We had about 12 goals planned. We kept changing them over and over based on a feedback during the campaign from the backers. So we were literally just coming up with this stuff all the time, just to make sure that they were going to be excited by the next two things that they saw. And this is part of that, keeping that momentum going. Is as soon as I wouldn't show all the stretch goals. I'd only show like the next two after the current one that's just been unlocked, and then there'll be like a little question mark mystery. So it's a gamified stretch goal table, and I thought it worked out pretty well. I mean, I think the key was to make sure you understood what was going to keep them incentivized. We definitely had some stuff that we put out just in the comments on the forums and say, what if this was a stretch goal? And some people are like, I don't care about that. So that definitely helped us kind of do this, but it took a while and it was a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So they literally, even if you wanted to sleep, you can't. Like, I would just go to sleep and I'd wake up 3 hours later and I would not be able to stop myself from looking at the counter to see how much money we raised. Especially the first few days, it was pretty insane. We raised. Oh, I'm gonna get into that detail later. Sorry. The launch. There we go. So everything you should have pretty much prepared before launch. Obviously, social media, have that all figured out. One thing I did do, I put out a notice on my Facebook telling my network and my friends, basically saying, here's this campaign that's going to be coming up within the next couple weeks. You're going to be hearing a lot about it from me. It's important to me. It's important to my company that this succeed. We're betting everything on this, and you're going to get an email from me as well. So just giving you all guys a heads up. This is not a frivolous thing. This is a big deal for me. And I just kind of put that out there as just like a text post, just to give everybody a heads up. And nobody had any problems with it. They were all very appreciative of it, and to be given that heads up. And then when it came to launch, I literally hand wrote about 200 to 250 emails on the first day. One interesting thing I did is I had these stack of business cards of all my game developer contacts and also tech contacts, but they're piled by which conference I got them from. So I would just pull a card and I'd be like, hi, Bob, nice meeting you at GDC. And then I, presented my, the rest of the email, which had easily clickable, retweetable links, Facebook sharing, all that kind of stuff. Everything that they would need to help me promote if they didn't want to back, because not everybody's a gamer, and I said that straight up, like, I'm not asking you to back it if you don't want to, but please just retweet or do what you can to help share this campaign. And that paid off. The first day of the campaign, we made the first 10K, and my limit, I set the raise amount to 40K. So getting 10K on the first day meant the first day's update could be, second day update would literally be 25% raised, which is a lot better than, if I set a higher target, 2.5% raise. That doesn't really get anybody excited, but 25% raise legitimizes the campaign, establishes this momentum. It establishes that it's popular, people are really interested, and it's basically going to happen. I think that's the biggest cause for conversion for somebody random who doesn't know who you are to come to the campaign and see that they can feel that it's going to get made, then they're going to back it if they like it, because even though they won't get charged, it won't get made, but it's just a weird psychology thing. It doesn't matter if they know that they're not going to get charged. If it doesn't get made, they still won't back it unless they feel like it's going to happen. So that's why that first day momentum It really is key. Oh yeah, so sacrifice chickens, pray, whatever you have to do. I won't tell you what I did. Day one, so this is the breakdown of our day one. So just over 10K, okay, 240 emails. I don't know if that's correct, but sounds good. Yeah, the average pledge was pretty good, $35 for basically a $15 game. Well, that was the first pledge amount. And that was day one, and that was important because day two is when I told Square Enix that they should go ahead and let their fan base know about our campaign, which is what I'm paying them 5% for. So they started their email campaign around noon of day two, and you'll see that spike, that big leap to 40K is basically, that was our target, and we made it within 40 hours, so not even 2 days, and we hit 40K. And then that way, on day three was basically 100% raise, which always sounds really good on day two. And then that's when the momentum really kind of, had a nice slow, like a nice steady increase. That's when we started getting featured by Kickstarter, and that's when, there was a little bit of press, and obviously once it's been funded, conversion rate is pretty much as high as it can get, as long as your product's decent. So anybody coming in, even if they don't know you, they're gonna feel pretty good about, the case for this game being made or this product being made, just because it's been funded already, basically. And then for us, at that point, it was all about managing stretch goals and managing the community. And that's the other thing, like there was all that work up to the launch of the campaign, but during the month of the campaign, I've never felt more busy. One thing I wanted to establish early on was that we wanted to foster trust and legitimacy, because there are just so many other campaigns doing, so many guys trying to make games off of Kickstarter, and what differentiates us from another random small team. And on paper there's nothing, all they can see is the screenshots, our video, which what makes us look slightly fancy, but not that much, and maybe our pedigree, as we haven't published previous games, but if you don't know those games, it doesn't mean anything either. So the one thing that I think would really foster that trust and legitimacy is basically communications. So we made sure every tweet, every Facebook message, every email, every comment on the campaign itself, any message that came in, people can private message on Kickstarter, and they do, is answered really quickly, like almost within 5 minutes, very honestly, with all the answers that you give you. If it means, you're saying, look, we want to do this. I don't think we're going to be able to add this stretch goal because I was talking to Sony, and we're still working out a deal with them, so I can't commit to that yet. So I would just, give messages that were completely super honest, and I just didn't feel like there was any need to hide anything. There wasn't, but a lot of people are uncomfortable about revealing stuff like that. But I'm just like, whatever. I'm just gonna say it, and same with the comments and everything else. And I think that combination of what we were doing definitely helped foster that trust, in that obviously we're gonna pay attention to them as we build the game, and we're gonna and we're gonna complete the game, because we come across like a company that is actually that cares about the backers and cares about the game itself. So that was a full-time job for me and my producer. That's all we did, and we kept refreshing the campaign page during the 30 days as well, to insert new artwork, to every update had almost like progress development of the game itself, even though it doesn't make sense, we're just raising funding for it, but we had artwork and updates ready to go, so that we would basically look like things are already being made and done. A little bit of smoke and mirrors. We didn't say things were done, we just kind of presented all these new screenshots saying, look, more good mock-ups, look what we're doing, we're working. And it was true, none of that stuff was wasted. We used a lot of that stuff in the development when we started it. One other thing I see a lot of other Kickstarters do is they really fail on their communications plan. So we determined early on that whatever we say we're going to do, we're going to stick by it no matter what. So we told them during the campaign that we're trying to be as open and accessible as possible right now. But as soon as the campaign's done and we want to start working on the game, we will not be as rapid to be able to respond to questions. But we will update every 2 weeks on the dot, and we made sure that was no matter what's going on, if the place is on fire, we still update, and we try to generally basically answer any questions within less than a few hours if possible. It's not that hard if you have somebody kind of on top of it. But yeah, that 2-week update, we were very, very serious about that, and we noticed even in the feedback, in the comment section for each of those updates, people after the 4th or 5th update, people were expressing how impressed they were that we didn't just disappear, that we're still updating, and they were loving the kind of seeing the behind the scenes development of this game. And that's really why people back stuff. It's kind of a weird community on Kickstarter. There's like any other community, there is deeply engaged guys and girls who just backing something is almost like a reward into itself. I've seen a lot of our backers have 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 projects that they backed. So it's almost like their own collection in a way, and they seem to be really engaged by you opening up your processes and your design processes to them, and that's kind of a key in what we were presenting in our updates. Oh yeah, the other thing I've noticed too is other Kickstarters, even that I back, sometimes you just send out updates with basically ads for other campaigns. So there's one way that is okay. The one way that's not okay if the update is entirely just an ad for another campaign. That's pretty shitty. What we do is we'll do a regular update, so with content of value to our backers, and at the end we'll just say shout out, and we'll basically shout out to another campaign. Obviously, it'll be similar. It'll be a game or it'll be a board game that's cool, something that we think is of at least a certain level of quality. And we'll exchange that with other campaigns we're running at the same time. So we actually have some really good kind of shout out exchanges. One game by the old Underworld guys who were doing a game called, I think it's just called Underworld. I don't know, I forget what the subtitle was, but they did a really cool thing where, so we did a shout out, and that was really great. And then they did a thing where on their backer kit, which is a site people use to manage their Kickstarter after it's complete, there is a thing where it says, when you complete your backer survey, it'll come up and recommend a couple of different campaigns. And we didn't know that they did this. They put us on their end of their survey thing, and that generated 4K for our campaign alone, which is amazing. So if I ever see those guys, I definitely have to buy them a few beers. This is what I ask of everybody who is going to do a Kickstarter campaign. Obviously easier said than done, but I feel like Kickstarter has had a bit of a bad reputation of late. There's been a lot of notable campaigns that failed, that didn't deliver. There's some people who outright scam people are now being sued. So it's a bit of this is why that trust and legitimacy is so key to foster when you are running your campaign. And every single update I put out there, the first thing I say is thank you, and the last thing I say is thank you, and I mean it. This game would not be made if I did not have this campaign do as well as it did. So our backers are, we treat them like kings and queens. There's just no doubt about it. And that is it. That's where you'll find me. PlayHalcyon6.com. Find Halcyon 6 on Steam and wishlist us if you're a PC or Mac player. That helps us a lot. You can reach me on Twitter, email. Any Yeah, that's it. A little bit of Q&A.
Show us the video.
Well, I don't have it here. You can find a video. Just type Halcyon 6 Kickstarter. All right, cool.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.